another fight, so he just can't seem to catch a break. FA and crew end up disengaging before, but you stick around, you end up finding out, I guess, and it's really not even too far from where the first fight started, so they really haven't even gotten to kind of get off the start line here, it seems like.
You can see why Hefe was trying to disengage already. Probably didn't have any HP to regenerate because of how long they were actually in the storm. They tried to shockwave to a mending machine. They end up running into a whole nother team. They go down here in game number 1. And that's the thing that starts to play on you mentally because of how long that fight took and the fact that both teams survived. Maybe going into next game, you might want to play it to a straight 50-50, get the elimination, which kind of increases your best chance to win the game.
You see here Pods and Phenom right now using the overdrive, get that boosted stamina here for the rotates. But yeah, to your point too, I'm thinking that's a really smart strategy. Hold the mending machine, let the teams in the storm kind of do their thing, and then you have this nice clean ambush. So it's probably not going to work more than once, but pulling out the big strats here in game 1 is definitely the way to do it. Meanwhile, Flappy here finds Amplify. Talk about lurk plays, just waiting behind the wall there, right camera holding. They find a quick elimination there. No teammate just yet to back him up. You know, Drew, Chris kind of listening in as well, seeing what all happened here, but Flappy's moving in. He's on the hunt, but Loris has to defend himself in a great tag here.
Yeah, just has to be careful. He does have the shields. He just needs the time. Does have Liquid to kind of bait and switch, take a little of the pressure, get it off his back while he puts as much aggression down as possible. But he has to be careful. Third parties are in the distance. It can change things in the blink of an eye. As Flappy's now healed up. Now he's going to continue on the chase, close off the whole other angle. Back of his teammate. They do have the pressure, trying to spray into the box. Damage is going to continue to fire off, land on the Lorzes until he's finally going down. But no, he's able to escape again. 1 HP in a dream, but the third party shots are now pouring in. Flappy trying to protect himself from that being the case. The Lorzes is just buying so much time here, and he might be able to survive if the third parties continue to crash.
I can respect it though. He's putting his back towards Chris's team that was just holding that other base not too far off. Look, they're recognizing, hey, we're in the sandwich here. I'm not sure if we want to finish this, but Loris ends up exposing himself. Flappy again gets shot by that third-party team. They're probably thinking about engaging in. However, nothing too big happening just yet, so everyone here is going to be content with chipping away at damage. Essentially, the only ones on the losing side here are really Flappy and Liquid that have to finish this fight quick. There it is. Finally, cost them a good amount of metal and whatnot, but we're still early enough in the game. They should be able to bounce back.
Yeah, I like the way you mentioned that, you know, Flappy was taking a ton of damage. So even though they were able to secure both of those eliminations, what does that do towards their Storm Surge? Because it wasn't as clean as they would hope. To jump on board Chance, Tyler haven't had to rotate far from where they actually drop, which is the north side of Battlewood Boulevard. Uncontested this time around as they quickly make their way in towards the zone. The southern edge, a lot of time to look back. CR, he's able to get the elimination onto 1. You can see Day trying to crash on the other side, close off the different angles. He ends up in the box, and they end up cleaning that elimination. Now they're on 2, and this is where you start to think, with the battles lasting as long as they have over towards Wonky Land, do you continue to rotate through here as a part of your plan?
At this point, we're just going to have to feel it out, see what they manage to do as far as positioning. There'll be some of the late ones to the zone right now. Start to purchase zone number 5, but take a look at it. The way it kind of played out originally. Here it is. They just catch them completely off guard there out in the open. And it sets them up for success now. But, you know, one thing to think about, normally we're celebrating like earning points, obviously come to mid-game. But none of that matters, right? If you are taking away, actively working against your positioning to play for an in-game, I mean, you're going to have a much bigger problem. So got to respect somewhat of the passive hold right now from players like Electro and everyone else here that's positioned up. They're just trying to make it to mid and end games. And hopefully the way they find their damage is from late teams rotating in.
Yeah, it's like a little bit of a different mind game because of the format switch up to where you're happy getting 1 or 2 eliminations. You're getting 3 points per elimination for that, especially having played LCQ Opens yesterday to make it to this point. A lot of teams like the W Key get their big elimination games and their wins out of the way early. This time around, it might be more beneficial, just like you see threats in Veer here. They're not necessarily worried about any eliminations. They just are worried about getting to zone very, very quickly, trying to beat as many teams as possible, and then accumulate that surge. But you got to be careful. A chop is coming in. Tyler and Chance from underneath, trying to get a huge surprise on threats in Veer. Luckily for them, they caught it at the last second.
It's because they're 22 below, make it even worse now as the shots end up exchanging back and forth. So whatever they were earning was taken right back and then some on the other side. It's not looking good for Anonia. Yep, here comes the shots from behind. And, you know, you win some, you lose some. This time, Waffle Joe Aiden showcased that they're just a little bit more prepared here coming into game number 1. And not only that, they get gifted with the zone just right up here. So this is an excellent spot to be in, finding your damage, finding a huge refresh and opportunity here. Look at that, even leaving behind essentially an abundance of metal. We could be seeing what is going to be the catalyst for a game 1 win for Waffle Joe.
Yeah, entirely too early, but if I have all that extra metal, they might be able to utilize it, try to make the early signs for the high ground, especially if you look at where the terrain is now. If we continue to move towards the north or even the eastern edge, mountains will be in place. So think of 2-3 steps ahead might be the name of the game here as we jump on board Skymay and Sia. These guys haven't had to rotate far throughout the game so far from the top side of the mountain to where they're at now. So they've really been able to utilize their positioning, but you see the whole different story on the other side, whether you're 500 below or simply 15. When Storm Surge activates every 7 seconds, 25 damage. Luckily for them, they were able to get 47 above the threshold, but they know that can change in a moment's notice, especially without any builds, without any resources. They need to start thinking about what's plan B from here.
Yeah, plan B is find a machine or find something to get yourself some white heals, because this is looking really rough. Quite some time, a little bit of distance to get there, but Dark Dominion, look how many teams are landing on this southwestern portion, right? This really, you know, when you start looking at the map, look how many people are live right now. You know, more experienced teams or lobbies typically will have a slightly better spread, but when you start getting into people that are playing nervous, first time to finals, right, not necessarily experienced with set lobbies, you start to see these really weird, heavily congested zones, and I think it's going to be the trend for the entire day today. So this is just a small sample size of what's to come. And look at this, Jacob, it's pushing straight up the hill. This is going to be very favorable for Noah and Civ if they can just survive the surge at this point, because they're one of the earliest ones now to take some high ground.
Yeah, now they and a couple other teams have to start to make that decision. Is this position good enough? Do I rotate when the zone opens up? Because you were talking about Dark Dominion being stacked. It moving towards the north means the south edge of this next zone is going to be stacked as can be, and it's going to make it hard for teams like Electro and Ult to make their way in safely. They're 160 above the damage threshold, so at least they have a little bit of a cushion to work with. But you could see shockwaving in the open territory like this with other players being on your rotation. Just kind of means it's a guarantee you should be one to take damage, and that's why you see even threats in Veer trying to build themselves a little bit of a cushion, wait for the zone to force them to make a play in. But down goes the Fizz, the Shockwave. They need that extra bump so that way they can close the distance in no time at all.
Yeah, I was like, well, this is going to cost them a lot being this late. They will likely have to do as much as they can to get as maximum distance possible here. Look at this, LK, even though he is by himself, he does find a knock right there. Straight into the box he goes. There's another shot coming in from an opposing team onto that down body. He might be able to clutch this one out. However, the surge is forcing him to stop and heal for now. Look at that. Another team ends up slipping below, so it's not over yet. Ends up finding the team just in time as the pickup goes through, and unfortunately couldn't get that closeout there.
Yeah, that would have been a huge elimination. The Siphon to keep him alive, but he turns back, but he's literally 3 HP. He gets ticked down. Bubba has been eliminated again, but hopefully it was a distraction for his teammate to be able to get out alive, because whether you win the game as a solo or a duo, it all means the same. You are going to grand finals. Let's jump on board Sandman and Nut. Nut is one of those players, when it comes to consistency, Monster, he was right there, just outside of the bubble in his heats. Found a new teammate, hopefully found some new confidence here. They are above the damage threshold, and when it comes to far zone pulls, it moves on over towards the east. So for the majority of the lobby, it isn't as drastic as that last one.
Yeah, plenty of terrain differences to come here. Noah, Civ, 8 below now, so these are some pretty important tags. They find a few there. That's going to keep them in the game here, buy them a little bit of room. probably ease up some pressure. And I'm sure there's going to be more opportunities, we say, opening up. There's a lot of players that still have to get up off this high ground ledge, and it just doesn't get better for Civ and Noah. They have clean lines of sights here, and everyone coming in. Look at that. Excellent job for them. Just, again, staying in the game, remaining competitive. Meanwhile, you get threats in Veer, right? Below the surge, buying vibes in the follow-up on the teammate. You know, they would have liked to get the finish on the down body first for that extra damage, but you can't be a chooser when you're begging for damage, right? So getting a quick little elite elim right there, getting that refresh is definitely going to be excellent.
Yeah, I feel like sometimes it's just like being on base while you're playing baseball. You have a split second to make that decision. Threats knows it's probably better to get the damage, but you have to keep on going, especially now they fall once again below the damage threshold by 72. One big shot, but they know it's not going to be safe. Even with that elimination there, they are still below the damage threshold, and it is now active surge. Every 7 seconds, 25 damage. They jump up just a little bit, but they're still 36 below. You can see they have no extra heals. Threats has no choice but to go, but he's finding nothing. Just scraps of loot left behind. He has one more tick that he can take of the actual Storm Surge before he's fully eliminated here, and it leaves all the pressure onto Veer. He can take 2 of those ticks, but he needs 36 damage, down to 1 HP. He tries to get in the box, but it doesn't matter. That's Scare and Osid that end the run of Threats and Veer.
So unfortunate because, you know, Threats had an option right there. He came across so much extra heals as well. You know, he's thinking in his mind, can I stop for this? No, I just got to get this shot off, but he couldn't do it in time. Meanwhile, Noah and Civ, it seems like their stars are starting to align, although they were underneath that big pressure. Civ is turning online, but no, Noah caught in the crossfire here while rotating it through, and no, they got the pressure now coming in from the opposing duo here as they're looking, but I don't think they realize Noah's down. That came from a different player, so they hunt Civ down as if he's a solo because he initiated that fight, and it could have just gone any other way had Noah not fallen there sooner. But look at this, Jacob. High ground starting to take identity here.
Yeah, and it's kind of these mountain ranges from the Frigid Fortress, especially if it continues to go towards the south. So got to really watch your material count here and plan accordingly. And that's why you see Kaz's, Degen, they're using the backside of zone as a blessing here, letting it push every other team towards the north side and the front side of the zone overall. But they bide their time. They have the damage. They don't necessarily need much. You look at high ground right now. QK is the one that's trying to solidify, but he is getting contested by one. They get the knock. That leaves Sia by himself. He's in a 1v2 situation, battling for the high ground. He needs this here because his teammate is already down. He gets pushed down low to the low ground, 1 HP, but at least he survived.
Contrap, TK put up a good enough fight. You know, TK is also one of the teammates, it seems like, who switched up his duo coming into this, so if he manages to pull a win out now, that'd be incredible stuff. Drew and Chris, we saw from contested Sandy to now 6 eliminations and approaching the top 10 here, are starting to set themselves up for success. They just found that nice refresher, but the high ground is still gonna be king here. You can see Saya thinking about going up, but Stiff and Eulogy cleaning up house here on the teams that are lurking on the edge of the zone. This is the dangerous spot to be in, but for Stiff and Eulogy, I mean, it's not looking too hot right here. They're starting to run out of mats.
Yeah, and those up above, they cannot fall asleep now. You see Snakes going up. Khan went down to try to reconnect, leaving QK by himself in a 1v1 situation, but Snakes, he's not backing down. This is exactly what we wanted to see, the battle for the high ground, but QK's bouncing around. You gotta wonder what the material count is for them because they've held it for so long. Now in come Kaz out of nowhere.
Oh, no.
Everybody is sending height, but Kaz, he gets dropped. Khan gets actually knocked. That gives a 2v1 advantage to Degen, and Kaz is on height.
Not good for QK. He's in a box, but he finds Kaz's and then follows up, but no, Degen just knew better there. Line just shot up and hits the tags that matter. Can he actually save Kaz's? It's a huge potential, very much a possibility right now. It does look like he's gonna get the pickup. This could be a Cinderella finish for Degen and Kaz's right now. This is worth the damage, we all know it, but no, as it happens, someone recognizes something's wrong up top. It's Angel who comes in alongside Noxy. Noxy, of course, hits that overdrive to the high ground here. He's just scouting now, and they have downloaded enough information to see that they are the kings of height here.
Yeah, but be careful. Be careful. Oh, you got Osin and Scare in the backside of zone. They are tanking it to try to catch any team off guard. For Noxy and Angel, they don't have the builds to hold on to it. You even got Jargu down below, still trying to control the entire front side of the zone. But Noxy has finally been challenged along with Angel. They've contested the high ground. They wasted all their builds. They're hoping it's enough. They're going blow for blow, but Noxy does go down. Osin going up against Angel. They clean cut the eliminations, but one of them goes down. Osin's now by himself. Most of the lobby here is solos.
And this is crazy. I saw Saya still alive, by the way, going for high ground. Meanwhile, Carillia and Jargo just listening to what's going down, and they haven't been able to find the refresher all this time, only sitting on 7 material. There's still a duo right here. The right camera, Pete couldn't quite respond fast enough there, and it's Flurry, but no mats. Everyone here is essentially out of material, and the low ground team, Carillia and Jargo, the experienced players are just biding their time, playing patiently, and meanwhile, it's Drew up top who has to do the impossible.
Yep, 1v2 situation. Just in case has the chug jug, but without knowledge of what they have down below, he's not sure it's going to be enough. Gets cone, tries to block one off. Drew's following the zone, just trying to wait for it to open up, give him any opportunity, but he spots in 1v1. One opportunity against Jargu, but that opportunity comes and goes. He gets a good amount of damage. Jargu trying to stay alive. Drew is controlling the zone, but it's not going to be enough. Carillion and Jargu, after their heats, they get redemption and they go to finals.
It was very, very close for a second there. I thought they were going to be able to do it there, Jacob, but nah, in the end, of course, the duo manages to stand strong and wait for it to go their way, right? A team that, of course, has plenty of experience and arguably are, of course, some of the bigger name vets here. Already now, though, Jacob, punching their way out here.
Yeah, that's really big right there. We saw Carillion get second place with Oliver. We saw Jargu barely miss the cut when it comes to consistency. Now they have nothing to worry about for the rest of the week. Zeke, what do you think about game 1?
A sigh, Jacob, a sigh of relief, because finally the chaos that these players must have been feeling, finally they kind of see the calm in the storm, right? The center of that storm. And they walk away with a victory royale. And as a duo, Kelly, Viv, I feel like that is going to be what gets a lot of these duos that W, right? Making sure they can both stay alive. It's so much harder to be a solo, but even harder to be a solo in the context of the LCL.
Yeah, 100%. Being able to just stay alive, stay hip to hip. It doesn't matter if you don't have eliminations. We saw Jargu running the low ground. Usually on our teams, we see them have a lot of eliminations when that happens. But that is, of course, not the case for the last chance lobby. Jargu, Carillion played that so well, so smart, while so many other teams were fighting in the high ground and eliminating each other. They stayed low, slow, and cool.
It's going to be one of those teams that just formed. Really, within the last couple of days, Jacob kind of called it out right there. Oliver, OG, and Carillion, they made a run in the heat. They got that second place game. They were one placement off of winning the game and going through the grand finals. Didn't work out, so they went ahead and split up. Jargu in heat number 1, he was 17th place, just 2 placements away from bumping into that top 10 on the consistency leaderboard. Broke up with Jays. These 2 guys came together and they win the first game of the last chance lobby. What an incredible storyline there. And I mean, we got some questions answered right there from the low ground as well. Even more, the more hype.
Yeah, I mean, next steps for this duo is like, okay, we're now in a finals lobby. Where are we dropping? What's our plan of attack? How are we doing this? You know, they only have a handful of days to figure that out, but ultimately we will be seeing them in the finals of Major number 1. That is so crazy. Now, of course, 4 more games left to go, 4 more VRs to be had. So for now, a break. When we return, we'll prepare ourselves for game number 2.
Okay, your home, auto, and business vehicle are all protected with Progressive.
Nice. It gets a bit overwhelming running a business and a family.
Ooh, sounds like someone could use a vacation.
A what?
A vacation, like taking a break from the stresses of life and work.
Oh, like when I'm logging everyone's hours so I get to sit for a while.
No.
Oh, like when I'm making a delivery in my van and a song comes on that I like.
No.
So like when I take my work van to the car wash and it's all quiet in that tunnel for like 5 minutes?
No, it's like when you go away and you take pictures and, I don't know, I've never been on one either.
Half off all pizzas Okay, Domino's, I see you. And free slice sauce when I order pan or stuffed crust? Oh yeah, I'm double dipping, and nobody can stop me, not even you.
Dom, my nose.
Four parks. One vacation that changes everything. Universal Orlando Resort.
DJ, we're leaving.
Is my old spice in there?
I think I'm gonna stay.
So that means I'll never see you again.
Dad?
Boy, I'm talking to my old spice, not you.
Dry eye relief with the prescription Mibo drop?
Mibo.
Don't use if allergic to Mibo. Remove contacts before using and wait at least 30 minutes before putting them back in. Eye redness and blurred vision may occur. Ask about Mibo.
Short on nothing, big on weekend. Only on Royal Caribbean.
Ready? So, let's do this. Oh, okay. I got you. No.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
Every click builds something new. It might start small, but then it grows. Watch me go and let the fun build on and on and on. Magnetize, the original magnetic building sets brand.
You could be vaping formaldehyde, which is used in taxidermy.
Oh, dear.
What?
Formaldehyde? Oh, dear.
What?
I knew it. Oh dear, oh dear.
What?
Aren't you an elk?
I don't know what I am.
And of course, welcome back to the LCL, where only the Victory Royale matters, nothing else. Game one, quite chaotic, Kelly. And as we kind of started to talk about before we kind of kicked off the competition, there's a lot of context to the LCL and like how players play, right? When you're coming into like a heat, you're like, okay, this is a heat, this is the lobby, this is my POI, and you kind of start to form plans. But Kelly, with an LCL, you ain't got time. There's no time, there's no way to form plans.
Well, it's funny. You could watch each team that took height in that game. You could see the strategy that they had in their mind. You had the team that went for high ground early, and oh, we're going to build a big height so no one can try and steal it away from us. And unfortunately, that did not go their way. And then you saw the team that was waiting in Storm to use their shockwave grenade to go up and try and steal. And they did that, but then that didn't work out as well. And then you had Scare and Osid that waited for the final moments until Zone 11 to steal high. And then that didn't work. You know, unfortunately, when it comes to the last chance lobby, you can have all the best strategies in your back pocket. But when there's a full duo down below Vivid, there's just only so much you can do.
Yeah, I mean, it was a tough break. I think the amount of height switches we got that game had to be 10 plus for sure. And a lot of the opportunities were actually coming from solos trying to do some sort of last ditch effort after losing their teammate at some point during that game. But yeah, I'm happy that you kind of talked about Osid and Scare because I did want to kind of talk about them. It looked like everybody during that game that was going for high ground, they were kind of just like going up and just trying to do some like Hail Mary plays. But I think Osid and Scare had one of the most like formulaic looking sort of strategies. You were kind of calling them out for kind of sitting in the storm, or Jacob was calling them out for sitting in the storm and kind of waiting for a good opportunity. Yeah, they ended up getting high ground, but it did not last long just because of how contested it ended up being. And Kelly, I think it's important that everybody at home does not forget we've got threats, we've got fear in this last chance lobby as well. I feel like the spotlight is on threats here, right?
I mean, yeah, there's definitely a spotlight on them, but for them to have 4 eliminations by Zone 8 and to still be below Storm Surge just showcases, again, that is another factor that is going to completely change in the last chance lobby.
You know what's even crazier, right? If we look back at Jargy and Carillion, these guys were landing Sandy Strip, right? At the start of the show, we called out that in Wonky Land is kind of these hot spots, right? it was triple contested, but now with a duo out, it's a 2v2 over at Sandy. So the question becomes, yeah, for now, like, are we gonna think some other duos were like, well, there's only 2 duos there, and maybe it's worth swapping up for a game and trying to go for it, Kelly?
I mean, you can't make the argument being, oh, well, it's triple contested. No one can win from a triple contested POI because someone just did. So, Vivid, I don't know. Maybe someone will try and land over there.
Yeah, it's going to be super tough to do as well. I also saw, you know, we kind of threw out the name Threats there. Some of our pros that we are very familiar with. D-Gen as well, right? Made a play for the high ground in that end game as well. So obviously we're kind of talking about how the early game is getting a little crazy, but the end game was also super crazy. We were kind of wondering if we were going to get an NAC in this last scene shot, that was going to be a little bit jittery, right? A little bit too nervous to go for the high ground, and there was going to be kind of nobody up there. Nah, everybody kind of came to play today. That is for sure.
Yeah, Degen and Kaz also another team that tried to go for that deep storm play to go for height. And then it did work out for them for a second. In fact, Kaz was actually even knocked and Degen was able to bring him back up. But we heard the casters. Obviously, if there's very little movement going up on height, something's going wrong and everyone's going to look up and see what's going on.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how much action was going down on high ground in game 1, right? It feels like maybe we need to pull back. Like, how do we know when too much is too much, right? If we're all going for high ground, none of us are winning. So we'll have to see how players look to adapt with 4 games left to go. Again, only the victory royale matters, and that's what all these players are looking to try and claim. Now, with that being said, I'm getting word game 2 is ready. We'll see you guys after this one. So casters, over to you.
I gotta say, man, Zeke's right. Being triple contested, winning a game is just something I did not expect. One of the first things we talked about, Jacob, was like how that is the impossible, but hey, they've done it. And with the pressure of just being a fresh signing too for Jargu to Gen G, I got to give you some extra credit. So now that we're starting to gear up here for game number 2, I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing how it's going to play out. Clearly, anything can happen. And it's also very clear that the veterans, Jacob, are coming to play.
Yeah, and I think, you know, we saw the whole lobby kind of slow down there in game number 1, where there was very, very little opportunities as the game went on to get free surge. You kind of had to wait for those max pulls to come in, be one of the first teams to rotate, and use that as an opportunity to look back. Will the meta continue to change as the day goes on? We'll find out, because game 2 is ready.
It's your last chance to make your way to finals. We all know what is on the line here and now, but the real question is can you step up and perform when it matters most? Obviously, we know with this type of battle bus, this is going to make that North fight extremely serious, but places we want to keep an eye out on are, of course, going to continue to be Wonky Land, the Sandy Strip right now, that things are going to kind of ease up there now. It doesn't get any simpler, though, right? Teams are still very much contested at the best drops.
Just got to be careful when you're contesting, depending on the bus path for Wonky Land, because you can get tagged out of the sky. We're already seeing it here, but Scuffies goes down 2 days. Sean, him and CR get the first drop onto 1, leaving Day by himself, and it does look like they are going to look to play aggressive here. This is their real opportunity, but Day was able to find some shields trying to back up, but only the Thunderburst in his inventory. Timing is of the essence for it to actually be a 1v1, so he has to go. He gets the green light, a couple of missed bursts. He's trying to figure out where he went, but help comes in, and down goes Day and Scuffies. They have been eliminated here from game number 2.
And just so I understand, this is the Day that was once a champion, correct?
Yep.
And now we're looking at Deshaun, the CR from the WIG. So newcomers coming in, kind of putting in the work here. Just to look at it from the other POV, you can see this all comes down to having the better drop, though, right? Like just getting bested right there, having the gun, having pretty much being prepared. You end up winning the exchange.
Yeah, that's kind of what happens when a Wonky Land type POI does get triple contested, because typically if it's just regular 2 teams, you can kind of split it before you go head to head. But now that a team is far north, forcing the 2 teams down below to fight for their loot, that's just kind of what happens. Bouncing all over the map here, jumping on board. Riptides or Prez and Gary were able to get at least 1 elimination. You see Yo5 there off on the side. This is where he has to make that decision. Do I go and leave, try to collect gold, hope to find the reboot ban that is uncontested to try to get my teammate back? Or do I lurk around this position, try to get the actual reboot card and go from there?
See if the ambush ends up playing off. But on the other side, Degen, Kaz, after a very strong end game, find themselves in a quick fight here, clean it up with 2 eliminations, and now possibly having to fend off the third party to their north.
It's actually a whole nother team in Riptides here. So they probably, for Gary and Prez, they probably think it's clear. They probably think that player already left. They don't see him in sight. This is a whole nother team trying to look around. So you, hopefully for Gary and Prez, you don't have that feeling of comfortability. You know how wild thing it can be, and that's QP's there on the edge. That was the guy who lost his teammate and lurking around. And honestly, this could be a blessing for him, because as soon as these two teams start to fight, he can go in and lurk around, get damage. He can try to get the actual card. He can loot whatever scraps are nearby. It's definitely given some options to play with.
Yeah, present crew really don't seem to have any awareness that there's danger just behind them. So it's going to come down to timing here for Yo5 and company, but might be slipping away opportunity here.
This is the questions you kind of ask yourself. You see it's very, very early on. It could be close, could be far, but Zone is pulling away from where this actual POI is, so it kind of puts a timer in the back of some players' heads, but it does look like they're finally going to fire the shots. DMR from Fireway. It does take heavy ammo, so you're not digging deep into your bag of ammunition for later on in the game, but instead of just going for a straight lurk, they probably think it's taking too long. Let's just try to get some damage here, so that when we do finally rotate, we do have a little bit of a cushion.
Yeah, and they missed probably the easiest tags they were going to get, because Presses and Gary here are, of course, farming their heavy material right now off this like little building here on the edge. But yeah, with that being said, they're going to end up skating out a bit earlier and right into another solo that's waiting on that outskirts like we talked about. They already knew that they took someone down, so probably confused. How was it that we just got shot from one player on the opposite side? There was no way that player would have wrapped, right? At least that's what they're probably thinking right now. Meanwhile, Noxy losing the exchange right here. This is not the situation you want to be in at all.
Yeah, almost thinking you're going to go for some free tags. Don't worry, Angel, I got this. And then the opposite happens. Kind of makes you think, second-guess decisions like that as everybody's continuing to rotate in. Early on, though, you can see the edge of the zone. Dark Dominion is going to be there, so it's telling me early we got a north, we got an eastern side of the map this game here in number 2, and I think that's why you're seeing Noxy and Angel instead of floating around here. You saw it and called it out yourself how stacked Dark Dominion got in that last game when it pulled towards the north, and this is just learning lessons throughout each and every one of these games today to see if they can pull off that big win and try to get into the grand finals, because it talked about the implications for today's games. It's not only to go to the grand finals next week, but it's for that chance at the summit land as well, which then turns into a chance for the global championship.
Talk about Gary finding that team on the outskirts. You see there, they do end up clashing straight into QPs. He's gonna get to quite put up the fight right there that he probably wanted to. He gets sent right back to the lobby. Let's go back here. Yo5 caught kind of in between Press. And he's just been waiting here this whole entire time. Talk about going for the long play, but I think Gary might have spotted him out. And then the lurker gets flanked. There's no way Gary was able to play a side angle here. And yeah, once Press saw him out, Yo5 thought he was low, but he said, son, you are not slick. And Gary finishes him up.
Yeah, for Gary, and then that's a big win. They already got the one Elam off spawn, and now they have that one is there. And the only real damage they've taken so far is from the storm itself. It's got to be feeling pretty good here about how your early game has been going, and try to build that momentum and that confidence to go into the rest of the game. Just jump on board Airs, Memento, over on the western side of Sandy Strip. And we talked about, hey, one team triple contested, they win game number 1, it kind of lightens up the Sandy Strip POI. Is anybody going to land directly there? Probably not directly on top, but it does allow for a little bit more comfortability rotating in that direction, knowing one less team is in your path.
Yeah, it's gonna play out here. Snake's Bluff moving through the zone here, straight towards that opposing team that put those shots off in the distance there. It's going to be Scare's crew. Look at this, Osid. A monstrous high ground base here. Just fishing. Being a menace to all the teams lurking nearby. Now, one thing's for certain, if they've gotten good tags, I mean, this is going to play well for them. However, if they've been going back and forth there, they're going to have to come down eventually.
Looks like you can kind of feel the tension here in games like this, to where teams are just trying to prioritize rotation, even if it means boxing up, stack 3 teams deep in a single spot. It's almost a feeling of safety as well, because chances of you getting pushed from somebody that might need damage for Storm Surge, that might need some resources, definitely decrease when you're stacked next to so many teams. To jump on board Slate, duo just off the side of the mountain. This is something that we didn't necessarily see in game number 1, but we did see Slate go down. This time around, switching up their strategy over on the top western side of the map. And instead of just trying to rotate down towards the south, they're just trying to stay on the northern edge, ride that coastline, and see how far they can do to get in.
Yeah, can't be upset at the little dead side rotates right now, especially while the lobby's still very much getting situated right now for the mid game. Nice little update here with Ghost's team. He's trying to play the rivers. He's got the fishing rod, of course. I'm going to try to min-max a little bit of heals here while they wait as well. But no, his teammate. I'm looking down at the bottom corner there. He did get tagged a few times, so luckily no knock there. That would have been devastating.
It's not good. Okay, what do we got going on here? He's just trying right now. He's just trying to do a little bit of everything new, and this is something we haven't really seen too much in a few seasons, actually, the way they are prioritizing a lot of the fishing. And so I'm glad to see him trying to pull out some old tricks, trying to mix it into new strategies and kind of go from there. But I mean, fishing out of a hot tub, it doesn't take a genius to know that's not possible, Monster. Unless
I mean, unless who coded the water, dude? We'll see what ends up happening. He might have some secret strats.
He knows something we don't. I feel like it.
I think so.
He full boxed up on the jacuzzi. He full boxed up on it. He knows something we don't. But Nuts, Sandman, Airs, even got Rubby making their win. Yuz and Sharkman still at their actual POI of Sandy Strip. So you're seeing the actual POI of Sandy and the surrounding lands becoming more and more contested as teams begin to rotate in. But it does look like the zone is going to push everyone towards the west this time around. But it does still have that chance, Monster, of going up towards the Snowy Mountains on the north in back-to-back games.
Chaos Gaming, we've seen him perform pretty well in different types of majors. At least he's gotten, you know, his reps in. He's shown up. He's put up numbers. It's definitely a team here we should be on the lookout for. Right past Caliper's trio there for duo, but the trees are going to keep him safe for now. Meanwhile, getting to OLK, who's got the high ground here.
Unfortunate circumstances in game number 1. Not just this team here, but a few teams actually going down early to Storm Surge. And when you land at the whole southern portions of the map, or even southeast, sometimes it's hard to loot up and get all the resources that you want while simultaneously getting damaged, while on top of that rotating in towards the zone. So it's definitely going to be a challenge, but for Electro, he thinks he has an open opportunity here. Here's the farming underneath, spots out Tyler, waiting for him to make one wrong misstep through the window. Here's the team behind him. This is where he is going to be on a clock about how risky this is going to be. Fires that first shot on Tyler, misses the opportunity, quickly disengages back on over towards his side. And those are the little opportunities there. Even though you're 335 above the damage threshold, that might not always be the case. And you look at moments like that, if I would have just got that little bit more damage, we would have been okay.
That would have been a full refresh too, right? Like, you talk about how situated they are here just in general. With the positioning, with the extra material. Could have been perfect from the absolutely guarantee an endgame. Look at this though, Snakes Bluff sitting deep in the storm right now. We've seen this backfire though, right? Endgame's coming down obviously to the distance, and then storm sickness kicking in the heat for Blake's team. Gotta be careful with how you take that unnecessary damage, especially when the zone is coming kind of in your favor. We got second time now, seems like another North Pole.
Yeah, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if one of the games today at bare minimum came down to some sort of a heal off, because
oh yeah,
when it's that much pressure of a win and you're in, I mean, we've seen, you know, players bring some extra heals so that way they can move back in the zone before they use the shockwaves to go in. So definitely going to see a lot of strategies exposed today due to the differentiator of the format. As we got Jeff and Boji here on the side of the mountain just above the waterfall. And this is going to be a good chance for them. You see the whole eastern side of the zone. They desperately need Surge, and this is going to be the best chance that they have to get it.
I wonder if they're just trying to bait, opening up that wood wall there to see if anyone would take it. Shots do come in, but Boji doesn't really have a chance to fire back. Instead, they're forced to heal right now. Okay, so this is definitely going to give away to the rest of the lobby that there's a team in deep trouble right here.
Yeah, they may not necessarily hear the strikes of Surge, but you definitely hear the shields crack. And right now, Boji is so close to that shield cracking, trying to go ahead and lurk on one team. The zone kind of opening up in their favor, but they are definitely on the clock. But it looks like for early on in this zone, 54 damage needed. They're going to drop a couple of their heals so that way they don't have to make a rash decision, rush into any desperation, and gives them an opportunity here to play for that piece control. But 54 below, active Surge every 7 seconds. They are taking so much damage here, and they're even falling further and further below the damage threshold.
This is good, though. They have a team rotating just next door. They couldn't quite find them, and there's others following that same pathway, so they just take... I was gonna say, just take the time to jump out there, follow that path. They'll definitely get a nice little elimination here. One trailing behind and the duo right in front. It's Saya and Sky Comic. And we saw Saya really playing well earlier in that game number 1 and continuing to do so here and now, defending themselves with excellent shots. Boji ends up falling there. They get the full finish, and that's going to be a lot of damage as well, swinging in their favor. So I think Sky and Saya here were also likely just about to fall under the Surge, but how quickly they got those elims there, Jacob, now they don't even have a problem.
One team going down, which kind of lightens up and loosens up the lobby just a little bit. The Storm Surge still being a deciding factor for a good chunk of teams in this game. And yeah, I thought game 1 might have been the only slow game, but back-to-back games where teams really prioritizing simply just staying alive, rotating from point A to point B in order to try to get there as safely as possible. Osid and Scare, 121. And this is where they know in the back of their mind, yes, they're barely above that damage threshold. They have so much time and opportunity to look back. Yuz and Sharkman don't have that same comfortability. They have to go, and they have to go now because they're just a few ticks away from going down and take it out of this game due to Storm Surge. But luckily for them, Monster, they're already at that edge of the zone, and they can look towards the north and try to get some shots on all the teams rotating in.
Yeah, that's what they were definitely trying to do there. Not even willing to, I would say, take the risk. They were having themselves completely exposed in exchange for tags, but doesn't look like it's going to be enough. I think Northern actually ends up getting the final say there. For Osid, they're back in the game. They find just enough damage. It seems like folks that were on the immediate competition on the Surge leaderboard have fallen as they jump way up. Still have QK Contract trying to position up for high ground. I think getting a little sample of it in game 1. They're probably going to be going for it again.
For Kaz's D-Gen. They were one of the teams, one of many teams that we saw fight it for the high ground. They launched up, they put everything to the test. They won it at one point. One of them did get knocked. They tried to go for a revive and use that as an opportunity to hold on to the high ground, but to the relentless pressure, so many teams sending it up towards the north just kind of caused everything to come crashing down. This is another one of those teams, Noxie and Angel. This time it looks like to start off some of these ending zones, it's a little bit of a different look. From the low ground, they say, hey, we got shockwaves. Maybe if we combine that with the fizz later on, we can still steal away that high ground.
Yeah, I'm gonna see if Osid and Scare are probably gonna go for like a late shockwave out to probably play for high ground, but it's only zone 7, so we saw how many teams are willing to take the risk to continue to contest high coming into this game here. The lobby really just leaves no room to reward any other play style. Trucks gets pressure though on the rotate there, unfortunately landing right in between the line of fire of all the other opponents. Surge is continuing to do damage, by the way, to different players in the game here. I think about 10 or so. Yeah, 10 players have to fall still, so there's a significant amount of players still alive here that are having some serious pressure put on their shoulders, which means they're going to be colliding right into the boxes of others.
Yeah, and it kind of plays those mental games too. With only 7 players at this time, 3 already falling. Do you out-heal it? Do you try to keep going? For a team like Chance and Tyler, they're 280 above, and they realize Storm Surge is about to turn off. They're already inside of the zone, so now they're only pressuring because they got that opportunity up above. As soon as that team repositions, they re-close the boxes. They don't want to open up and give any risk here for teams just trying to get some damage of their own, and as soon as the zone pulls towards the north, they're one of the first teams to immediately try to shockwave over, and we're in the 8th zone, Monster. This is where we typically start to think, is it too early to go for high ground? But this is where we typically do teams start to see them set themselves up.
Yeah, this, the time is now essentially, but look, no one's taking a risk here after game 1. It was almost like a warning sign to all the teams that went early for height that it was not worth it. And now everyone's doing the opposite. Everyone's very much timid here and doesn't want to commit early. And we're seeing a lot of good material counts, right? Tyler, Chance being relatively situated. Osid was looking very strong there, but look at this, Threats here, playing this game out. Looks like by himself at the moment, still holding it down, still making it very deep into the lobby so far.
Hey, I'm ready for history to be made. If somehow, some way, Threats wins this game by himself, I think that might be the first time ever in the history of the game we see it, but only time will tell, and it's definitely going to be hard to see a team like this. Chance and Ty are playing so methodical here of how they've been approaching this end game, only taking steps forward when they know it's 100% guaranteed they won't take too much damage. Peeking, just trying to get some opportunities. You saw them land a couple of shots a few seconds ago, but now they're just waiting, biding time. Zone's gonna pull, and as soon as it does, immediately they start to react. They realize in all of these occasions, timing is of the essence, and a smart heads-up play, they're gonna go ahead and sacrifice some HP, so that way they cut that zone off and get to the front without any risk.
I was curious who's going to be the first team to go for it. It's going to be Sandman and Nut there trying to position up. Stax' team is going to go ahead and fall there, but this is going up and over a little bit of some terrain. That's going to go ahead and cause some problems for anyone that was starting to run a bit low on material. Meanwhile, Scare and Osic continue to play the mid ground. Has cost them a fair bit, but they do have those slab pizzas, right? So they have a lot of options. We talked about teams potentially thinking about going for a heal off. If Osid can just wait this one out and not take unnecessary damage or find a refresh, they could be a potential team that sets themselves up for a heal off victory.
Yeah, we're already seeing teams, though, trying to go ahead and elevate themselves. QK and Khan, they were on the high ground before. They were the first team to get contested up there. This time, Nut and Sandman are above. You see Nut just immediately trying to put down pressure. Evan's just trying to get to the front side of the zone. He might be stuck by himself, but solo dreams still do happen. Kaz and Degen, they're taking a different approach. Instead of sending towards the high ground, they're trying to dominate that mid layer, and this is the pressure that they're feeling. They're hoping and praying every other team sends it like that first game, but this is completely different. Everybody's down below, including Nut and Sandman, who get chopped from high ground and get eliminated.
Yeah, QK and Contract were the one that actually broke that build there. Was held on, unfortunately, by one little wood structure. Everything in the front was metal, but that was just a pump fake because there was a wood wall in the back, piecing it all together, and they find it. So now DJ and Kaz come up for height here. QK and Contract just can't catch a break, although they timed it perfectly and they want to get to those structures and play for height. They're now forced to take this fight once again here.
Yeah, and so far it does look like it's working out for QK and Khan. This time around, they get that first elimination, and now they're pushing Kaz's out of the zone, making him take HP damage. And as soon as he makes his appearance in, he gets pressured from both high and a low ground. QK and Khan waiting till this perfect moment to try to make their play, but they still got Evan down below. Shots are going to connect. That's one solo. You still got Osid and Scare as well on the low ground. Another strong duo here that can disrupt everything that they have going for them.
Even they have connected, now they're out of material, so let's see what Osid, Scare have in the tank. Okay, the refresh is going to go ahead and give them a little bit of material, and I see the heal count too, so medkits, slap pieces, plenty to work with, but Eulogy and Stiff are still in this game, so you have to think Osid and Scare are thinking to themselves right now, we cannot ease up, we still have to continue to fight our way through this.
Yep. For QK and Khan. You see there's a lot of recycled builds down below, so even though they might not know exactly where they're at, they're just putting full on pressure, at least trying to get to the duos down below to clash with Scare. No shields, Osid is there, everybody down below doesn't have anything to regenerate. It's going to force them to fight, especially with no builds. Osid is trying to find the path. Scare just goes for a flank shot behind, but the pressure from up above is just relentless, not really giving up on an opportunity. Osid does go down. That's Eulogy who tries to make the play along with Stiff. Can they survive? Because high ground is now dropping. QK makes the perfect play. Him and Khan, even with 3 medkits in the back pocket that they don't need, they clutch up.
Game 1 was close for them. They actually had the heart for go for height. It seems like they adjusted their strategy, and then Jacob figure it out for game 2. Well played for QK and Contract here. Zeke, what do you think about that one?
Bro, again, congratulations to the duo. They're just finding that calm in the chaos, right? Like, in these situations, so many things can go wrong for so many different duos. You think you're set up, you think you have surge, you think you have weapons, builds, whatever, and then suddenly someone's flying at you in your box, you know, and it all falls apart. But for QK and Khan, they really just slowed things down, right, Kelly? We kind of saw something out of last game as well, kind of similar, where they're just like, okay, look, everything's chaotic. Like, let's just, what are we doing? What's our plan? Take a breather. Let's go for that W.
Yeah, once again, waiting for the right opportune moment to take height, waiting for another team to try and steal it. So that chaos in the high ground allowed them to go and get the elimination onto Degen. So Degen and Kaz had to drop down below. And then, of course, you had the 2 teams on low ground that they just patiently waited to face for each other. You could hear Monster D-Face saying that there was just so much pressure from above that QK and Khan were able to just kind of make those other 2 teams face each other, which allowed them to get the final elimination.
Incredible awareness on multiple fronts from this duo. The first, of course, being the initial high ground take that pretty much knocked Nut and Sandman off the high ground. They kind of went up and they were immediately tasked with taking down Degen and co, right? They win that 2v2, and after that, the rest of the lobby is kind of forced down to the low ground. This was their only play, to use all of their ammunition to go ahead and pressure all of these builds, because as you can see, this whole entire time, they actually had 0 builds to work with right there. So super scary stuff, but they played it to perfection. Didn't even use any of those heals like Jacob was kind of talking about, but clutched up. It took high ground at the exact moment they needed to. They won the game. They're going to Grands.
I love it. We'll have to see what they prepare for Grands, right? Now they've made it through the hard part. Next up is trying to qualify to the summit, man. It doesn't get much more difficult than that. That being said, though, that's now 2 games, only 3 left to go. After this short break, we'll start to prepare ourselves for the next game and talk about some of the close calls we had in this last game.
She's got 12 items.
Okay, eyes on your own basket. Young homeowners turning into their parents love rules.
Come on, man.
Let's go.
Everybody knows you're not supposed to put yard waste in the trash bin.
Let's go. It's a thing.
Ah, there's dedicated RV parking around the back.
No, we're not leaving a note. It's okay. You don't need a ticket. There's no one waiting.
Progressive can't save you from becoming your parents.
See?
But we can save you money when you bundle home and auto with us.
Technically, these onions count as one item.
You're literally the only one who cares.
Yep. Almost done.
Come on, man. Let's get it.
Every Domino's pizza is half off right now. Plus, I heard their new slice sauce is free with pan or stuffed crust. Yeah, basically, I just gave away the secret that they're giving away the secret sauce at Domino's.
Adobe Acrobat, your team's home base. Collaborate within a shared PDF space. You talk up the teamwork. They think this design could be a contender. AI helps them finish the rest. Do that with Acrobat.
next. One vacation that changes everything. Universal Orlando Resort.
I vape, but I don't need to vape, you know? I only do when my friends do it. Or on the weekends. I don't know. I don't really like to think about it.
I won't break our promise. I know you're here, and I will find you.
The sun is forever. PlayStation.
Hurry into your local Acura dealer for the Spring Into Performance event going on now.
Of QK and Khan. You know, Kelly Khan reminds me of another Khan name. Kanada. I hope he's doing well. Much love, brother. Why don't we talk about things that happened in this game? A lot of close calls here. You know, we've seen a few names like time and time again after like the same time. DJN and Kaz is one, Scare and Osid another. Starting off with DJN and Kaz though, you know, I feel like the pieces are there, right? Like again, because it's LCL, even if you have the pieces, there's so many other chaotic factors at play. And when all you can do is get the VR, it becomes so much more difficult.
That's very true, and you can see that DJN and Kaz definitely had a plan in mind there. They were sticking to the low ground. They didn't really have too many materials, but that did not stop them from trying to take height. Once they were able to kind of get a few refreshes, they did go for that. Unfortunately, it did not ultimately go their way. Of course, we saw QK and Khan go for height instead. They were able to recover just a little bit. I believe DJN actually went down and Kaz was able to drop down for just a few seconds, but obviously it doesn't matter if you can get a solo clutch and make it to third place after losing your teammate here, because no one cares if you get third in the last chance lobby.
I mean, I actually care because I think DJN and Kaz, they're playing pretty good, right? I mean, you can see it. The formula is there. They have the game plan. Zeke was kind of calling it out that it does look like they are playing extremely well. I think games 1 and game 2, pretty much the same exact thing happened. They took high ground and then immediately lost it afterwards. So as soon as they can kind of figure out just that little bit of a hiccup, maybe they have to take it a little bit later or just be a little bit, you know, more aware of their surroundings after they do take it. I really do think that they are looking like one of the best teams for me personally to actually win one of the next 3 games.
All right, okay, what about then on the other side, right? Scare and Osid, we see them once again make it into that top 10 situation, but you know, to both your points, how do we attack this, right? How do we make sure we put ourselves in a situation to get the VR? I mean, how do you find that calm in the storm?
Oh, man, we've now seen 2 games and 2 different strategies coming out of Scare and Osid. In game number 1, they went for height, but it didn't go exactly their way, with actually the low ground team winning the game. And then in this one, they stuck to low ground. They had different heals. They didn't necessarily have the loadout, but honestly, this was less so of what they did wrong and more so of just what high ground did right. You can only do so much when you have another duo on low ground than high ground just pressuring you, Vivid.
I mean, the only thing that Osid and Scare were missing right there, and it came down to that final decision. It kind of split up. You could see Eulogy and Stiff, they were side by side going into that 2v2 on the low ground, whereas Osid and Scare, they're kind of like jumping around. They're looking for each other, looking for an angle. So I feel like they lost sight of a plan in the end, where as if they had one, then they probably could have clutched it up and maybe had an opportunity to go ahead and 2v2 QK and Khan up on the high ground, which would have still ended up being tough. But yeah, Osid and Scare making multiple end games. We kind of expected that so far. 3 more chances for them as well. We'll have to see if they can clutch up.
All right, so talk to me about this high ground situation, okay? This is some of the most chaotic we're going to see. High ground, you know, flipping back and forth, duos up there, like Sandman, for example, taking up to height and, you know, taking these fights. I asked before this game, how much is too much? Like, right, how much should we be attacking this high ground?
Well, I believe they took it around zone 8, and that is definitely a little early from being able to hold high ground, especially that long, especially when you know that there is a lot of teams looking up. But it is also possible that they were kind of knowing that this is a little early. This will just give them an opportunity to look at the rest of the lobby, and then potentially if someone comes up, at this point we're already so low on mats, let's drop down and give it up. But unfortunately, they didn't get that opportunity because they got chopped.
I was going to say, they were actually healthy enough, right? They did take it a little earlier than what we have seen before, but they did have the opportunity to continue if they were just a little bit more aware of what was going on with their connections to the rest of the builds. And yeah, that's the big question for me. Usually the way these types of lobbies go is as the games go on, as we get kind of deeper into the competition, the high ground does get a little bit more chaotic. We've already had pretty much like that chaotic, high ground. Are these teams going to maybe switch it up and it's going to be like the reverse effect, or we start to get a little bit more calm on the high ground as the games goes on because teams have tried it, maybe they don't like the way that it's looking? I don't know, we can never really predict these things, but either way I feel like we're gonna be entertained.
I feel like ultimately as long as you and your duo are alive, chances are good, right? You called out before.
Yeah.
Splitting up, not great. Normally, in FNCS, that's fine. Heats, finals, sure. LCL, you need all that firepower from both members of a duo alive. You want to try and aim for that VR, but for now, it is that time once again. Game number 3 is ready, so casters, over to you.
That's such a beautiful breakdown as well, because that's kind of very, very similar thoughts that when I'm thinking in game 1, we had 6 or 7 teams send it towards the height. In game 2, we kind of had half of that kind of playing towards that mid ground. Now we're in that halfway point where teams really had enough time to fill each other out, how they're playing this lobby, and it just has me scratching my head. What will we see here?
Yeah, I mean, who knows what comes next? This lobby has really taken a turn, right? Game 2, so much more passive when it comes to like throwing everything at the wall, tossing a deck of cards in the air, right? And shooting for height. Everyone was much more reserved. However, whoever took the risk, obviously, as we saw in the last game, ended up being rewarded. So ultimately now, I think we're going to find that balance, right? As we start getting the jitters out the way, Jacob, folks start reevaluating the strategy here.
Yeah, and it's really important because I always look at the mental game. Right now, you're in game 3, right? You already had 2 chances. You have 3 more at the end of the day. But if you don't find yourself in finals by game number 5, I think everybody is going to crash. But we're at the halfway point, so let's jump right in.
Last chance lobby game 3 is now kicking up and starting off. 3 more spots to finals are available here, Jacob. It's going by really, really quickly. And if you're one of the teams contested off the drop, I mean, you have to assume that every single time they jump into the game, they are holding their breath. And these battle buses have not been favorable to them, right? You kind of don't want it to be right on top of you. It makes it go down like this. Very, very quickly, it could turn back. And Sip's going to be the first one to get caught off here by Hefe Bob. So Cyros almost forced to come down here now and back him up. This fight being pushed to the limits here.
Yeah, 2 different approaches here. No plays, and Civ just went straight down to the bottom. Meanwhile, Hefe Bob and his duo Cyros, they attacked from 2 different angles, and that's what seems to be that difference maker. Even though Cyros did get a ton of damage from Noah plays, it was just enough of a distraction for this 2v1 to really ensue. And unlike any of the games that we saw, game 1 and game 2, this one has been cleared out very, very quickly. So for Hefe Bob and Cyros, they got a lot of time to work in this early game.
Yeah, and then when you get sent back earlier, you just got to sit there with your thoughts, try to figure this one out. And I'll just say it, like, that battle bus, like I said, is not exactly favorable. If you're contested, it goes right over your drop. It just makes it so you have to be really, really perfect. It's hard to practice for. Yuz, Sharkman on the other side versus Nut and Sandyman. This is definitely a strong duo, the strong duo. Sharkman, Yuz right now, positioned down by the river's edge. Seems like they've already engaged back and forth so far. Relatively decent tournament day for Sharkman and Yuz. They've made some endgame appearances, but again, still quite the distance to go. They want to play for the win.
Yeah, I thought these was one of the teams that was supposed to be landing over towards Sandy Strip. They might have got pushed out early on. You see the damage there, but this is where you got to be careful. Sometimes when you see somebody fishing, it's almost a sign of weakness. And I think that's what Nut has spotted out in the distance, immediately hopping on over. Here's Yuz in the distance. Instead of just focusing on one, he tries to pay attention to two, but just shots come in. It's more than just them. It's third parties now affecting this fight, and this is where those decisions to get aggressive early, sometimes to be decisions that you're going to regret.
And there goes the finish right there. So it does come through. Sandman gets shot as well from the team on the mountain. And this is just a messy, messy battle. Sandman Nut clearly regretting sticking around as long as they have done so far. You know, Yuz and Sharkman are like, had a surprising amount of material already. You know, it's one of those things where, again, it's almost like a false fake out. You know, you're thinking, oh, these guys are in shambles, right? You clearly can't have that much. He's just sitting in a wood box. But no, they were saving what little bit of the heavy material they did have because they somehow managed to get themselves pretty situated early for what it's worth.
Sometimes you just got to save the good mats to a little bit later. I see Slate, this top side of the map against Liquid and Flappy. They do get an early advantage here. And this is where, if you're Slate and Mukatov, you got to start to think, like, how do we turn these small wins at our drop spot into a game win? Especially when both of the zones so far have been in that favor. We'll see how this one continues to shake out. Very, very early on to see where this zone is pulling. But for Threats and Veer, landing at Dark Dominion, it almost doesn't matter to them. They got equal footing anywhere they want to go. Wave. Yamin just trying to rotate away from this side of the map, but they're just getting chased not only by one team, but you see a solo player up above also shooting shots in that direction. And you can see they're very, very low on materials, so if they continue to get pressured, this might turn into a nightmare.
It could go either way, but at least the team kind of eased off here for now. Phenom Pods just backing on off. Wave and Amen are going to go there separated, so they will all live to see another day. Jumping back in with Scuffies and Day. Again, game 2 ended very quickly as they were completely dropped at their early game, and now they're mixing it up. Jacob, it seems like they have given up the wonky land.
Yeah, it seems like they're kind of switching up their drop spot, and honestly, coming into this tournament, they weren't necessarily maining Wonky Land as their POI. They just see that they're in the last chance lobby, and they're like, hey, might as well shoot for the stars, go for the best POI, and now they're just kind of going back to game plans that they know works best for them. Towards the south side of the map, though, this is where it usually ends up being the congested side of the map. We see AIM and Chaos Gaming finally meeting up with Wave and Amen as they rotated towards the south side of the zone, but this is where they're trying to get a little bit of a cutback here. They don't have a lot of materials. You talked about brick, metal being the most precious of the sources. They need to find something, and they need to find it quick before Chaos Gaming can get word about how lack of resources they are.
Yeah, it could have went either way, but again, giving them enough time to go ahead and bounce back. Scuffies and Day, though, playing that little cave's edge, lurking from place to place, and they catch a player off guard there. A nice little pickup for them there. Gonna go ahead and set themselves up for some extra material here. And this is already going much better, clearly, than getting eliminated off drop. So they're probably gonna be sticking to this kind of frigid split drop. Chance and Tyler on the other side, from end game to early fight now, toe-to-toe here against Angel's duo.
Yeah, just kind of looking at how the games have been going so far. Chance and Tyler, 11th place, 38th place. Not necessarily where they would have hoped to be so far in this tournament, but hey, it's progress, and that's kind of the feeling that you need to hang your hat on in this one. But a fight early against Noxie and Angel, that's one that scares me just a little bit. Noxie and Angel have been pretty consistent of their own. 6th place, 13th place, mixed together a couple of eliminations here. Probably realizing a fight over towards Humble Hills where they're missing a third or more than a third of their materials might not be the best case, especially since they're already in the zone. So rotating out to try to complete what they're missing.
One of those circumstances where you get the damage and it is time to bust a move, get on out of there. Jump over to the landing here to the north. Cirque, Cynix already on the move here. Two teams that were, of course, looked at here kind of early on. But back on over to AIM and Chaos Gaming. So they've continued to have this standoff here. Remember when we last tuned in, they had Amen kind of pressured down, and we knew they didn't really have a lot of material, but it seems like Wave and Amen haven't quite left the drop. So Amen Chaos is probably thinking to myself, for themselves, that something desperate has to be going on with this duo here.
Yeah, especially if they know that's the same one that was getting chased around. They had to have a huge lack of resources, especially in comparison to Chaos and AIM here. Almost more than halfway maxed up, and you can see they're prioritizing a lot of the metal here. You kind of break those metal frames. It's one of the best pieces of metal in this building that you're able to get, and I think that's why Wave and Amen were kind of focusing on getting the frames, the bottom side of the building. From 0 to 18, it's not much, you know as well as I do, but at least it's something here to fight back in this close quarters combat situation.
Yeah, Chaos Gaming here now starting to take control of what they can for the builds. Now starting to choke them off from the left and right hand sides. Playing a dual-sided angle. I mean, Wave and Amen have to come in together and focus in, and I mean, at least that little side angle right there plays to the favor of Amen's duo.
I almost wish they would have just hopped in that box. As soon as they got the damage onto AIM, it almost looked like Wave was going to come back. They were going to try to spray their way in. You can kind of see they're just lacking a good amount of resources, probably thinking it's not necessarily worth risk, down to bandages when it comes to HP, minis, even one shockwave left, but that puts a huge amount of importance on this actual fight as AIM bites off more than he can chew. They finally push their way in, but I think there might have been a good shot being landed by Chaos Gaming here. If he can somehow push his way in, try to get at least one shot onto Wave, narrow this down to a 1v1, but he goes in blind. Amen gets a good shot onto him, dropping him down to less than 50 HP, and this is their chance to pressure. They know they got one elimination. They know he's by himself. They have to be able to close it out and not give Chaos Gaming a chance to fight back.
Nice little shots there from the SMG as well for the follow-up, and they do get to close it out. You know, I was a little concerned of whether or not they'd be able to finish the job there with how passive they were playing, but in the end, it works out the way it was supposed to. On over to the Battlewood sign. Scuffies and Day have made their way out that low frozen terrain and on into better scenery here. Looks like they had a standoff there, Jacob.
Yeah, just fighting for priority position, and I say fighting pretty loosely. You know, teams taking it very, very slow, and yet another game here, letting Tyler and Chance rotate off towards the top of the mountain. They think the zone is pulling in that direction. For Day and Scuffies, they can continue to progress up this mountain, but since the zone is pulling teams towards the western side of the map, it might be beneficial for them to stay here depending on what their storm surge looks like.
And the only problem I saw there was that they seem to have gone through all the wood and brick. But he did still have 500 metal, but yeah, everything else was fully committed in fighting against looks to be Noxie's Angel. You know, Havoc and Vibes kind of hanging out right now in the storm. A little bit of the know there is an opponent above them. Seem to kind of recognize there might be danger here, so I'm gonna wait this one out for a second. Nice bandages.
Yeah, I like, you know, when instead of just dropping down the Slapperoni Pizza, using splashes, just try to get the maximum use out of everything that is around you. That way, if they do break into those Slapperoni Pizza boxes or use splashes, they have to use far fewer than if they would have just those bandages out. But you can see where the zone is kind of pulling teams just the north side of Battlewood, inside of the zone. Maybe you got Hollow in there as well, all the way over towards the Riptides. And this is where it is going to ease up a little bit when it comes to the pressure in these moving zones later on in this game, because we don't have those snow mountain ranges towards the north side.
We got those slap pizzas. Little early break in for Smiley and Liam here. They're forced to use their last big pot. And now they're down to the wire here. Surge now starting to get active, Jacob. 10 players or so are going to be under pressure. A couple highlights here from Chance and Tyler. We saw this again, the standoff against from Day's duo, then rotate and move into Threats in Veer, who was just off in the distance listening to that initial battle, end up on the losing side of the gun. I didn't see if Veer was still standing, but Threats surely was taken out in the highlight.
Yeah, it's going to put a lot of pressure on Veer. We saw Threats by himself as a solo last time. Now it's going to be Veer's turn, hopefully to try to get the reboot back into the game. Using some other teams around him as a distraction might not be a bad idea. Stiff Eulogy, just kind of prolonging their journey inside of the zone. And now that they're 300 above the damage threshold, you can see why they're employing this strategy, because it gets so chaotic at the edges of the zone where everybody's trying to rotate in. They miss a huge portion of that destruction. Only thing they got to worry about is how they're going to get there once they're on the edge. You see Rickroll. You see bad luck here. 68 below the damage threshold here, falling to 92. This is exactly why you see they're getting aggressive. Almost have no other choice but to put pressure on the team nearest them. That's Flurry and his duo. And now they're getting a little bit of piece control, just kind of narrowing down their options here.
Talk about narrow options. I mean, they're starting to run out of heals here. Probably time here shortly. Pressuring the opponents on the other side of the wall. There goes the shield, essentially. This Covary miss definitely playing into their favor at the moment, giving them enough time to go back and forth, but they're not finding the tags. Johans and Flurry try to back out, drop to low ground there, so Rick and Bad Luck actually lose their opponents for a moment here, and that's more time playing against them here.
That's exactly what happens. You kind of end up in a desperate situation. They did have some time to maybe pop mini or big pop, but either way, that was just a tough situation to get out of inside of the storm, below the damage threshold, and it's active. Now Flurry and Johans here are feeling that same thing. 45 below after winning that fight just goes to show that even if you get eliminations, doesn't necessarily help your cause. And the nearest team to him immediately shockwaves away, which almost ensures he's going to take a few more ticks of damage before he's box to box against anybody.
Yeah, they're going to take a ton of damage here. Day and Scuffy's were in the same situation just moments ago and now forced to heal up. Talk about Flurry, though. Look, he falls, trying to make his way desperately to the zone there. They were moving too quickly. He couldn't even stop down and heal. The pressure was too much, and Scuffy's Days get not only delivered a little bit of damage, but definitely some extra loot. Here comes Johans right behind them, and little do they know, Scuffy and Days, they need this. They're like, oh, great. We can fight ourselves possibly another little battle here before we get going.
Yeah, 9 damage above the damage threshold is good for that zone, but as I was going to say, as soon as we move on over to zone 6, they're surely going to be below. Luckily for them, it isn't by much. They can try to bide their time. Good damage onto Liam. That's going to help a little bit, but Storm Surge activates. Some of those ticks are going to land on Day, but they get themselves above the damage threshold here for a few seconds. So they're going to have to really plan ahead to see how they're going to rotate from point A to point B with taking minimal damage and not falling back under.
These are other teams that were just under the Surge battle as well, all being very much pressured here, forced into some bad situations here. Phenom now, the great little shockwave to get to the edge of zone, bases up. He's got a lot of heals to work with, so digging into the Chug Jug here is going to go in and cap him off, but as a solo, it's going to be hard to win this one, especially if we're playing with a bit of water terrain. See how it ends up kind of cutting up. Back to Scuffy and Days, though. These late rotates here because they were forced to stick around longer than they probably originally wanted to, given that they needed to fight for Surge. But Scuffy's is doing what he has to do, and look at this. Quite the find there on the heels. A Chug Jug, it only's got 100, but hey, it's enough to at least keep him alive right now.
Has to be careful here. He's trying to utilize as many of the heals that he just got for getting those eliminations, but once zone closes, it's going to do so much damage trying to stagger back, and you see Day just trying to wait, bide his time, hopefully use the strength and numbers to get in, but with the zone already engulfing Scuffy's, he has no choice but to go by himself. He tries to rotate over and immediately begins to get lobby targeted out. Scuffy's probably hears the communication coming through, trying to beeline his way on over. They're barely 64 above the damage threshold. They're not necessarily thriving, Monster, but at least they're surviving for now.
Hey, they've done enough. They got to the new zone. They still have a med kit in the tank as well. Meanwhile, Tyler has already lost his duo. He's barely hanging on right now, but putting up a good fight nonetheless here to stay in the game. Again, we've seen him at least in one end game before, but no, look at this. The Surge turns back online. Scuffy's loses his teammate there, Day. And unfortunately, he's now forced to play this one out by himself here.
Such a nightmare of a scenario. Immediately looks down. Vibes duo got eliminated, but he's not able to take part in that. Drops in, tries to land the first shot, but he's so far below the damage threshold. He almost needs an elimination here. And now Tyler's feeling that same type of struggle. Luckily for him, he has a couple slices of pizza left in the back pocket. Tries to break into the box, 28 above, but he gets sent back to the lobby as well.
Yeah, not even a good refresher for the receiving team as he went through his pizzas there right at the end. He lands a big shot before getting sent back to the lobby. Well, back on over to Osin and Scare. Feels like it's been their show this evening, and it's only a matter of time, hopefully, before they can put it all together and get that win. This is the most experienced team amongst the general lobby, I think, is, you know, stat for stat so far. And they've performed really well.
Yeah, if consistency mattered, they'd be in first place for sure, but that's not the point of today's tournament. You have to win. They've gotten a second place right there on the line. They've gotten a 5th place, so they already have the recipe for success. It's about executing on the blueprint that you have right before you. Angel, Noxie, they also had a close call today already. 6th place, we saw them risk it all for that high ground in game number 1. Unfortunately, so did so many other teams, so they went down in 6th place, but now they're really trying to make up for it. You see them trying to scout in the distance. Who has high ground? Can he hold it? And which way the zone pulls, they can decide what's next.
They're running 3 Flowberry Fizz with floppers as well, so really keeping the options open here as we're into the deep edge of the late game right now. But high ground right now, Cirque and Cynics are the main team position. There's others here playing for this layer as well. As you can see, folks are looking to start elevating themselves. So back to almost a game 1 feel, where game 2 was very much defensive and passive come the end game. Now game 3, things seem to be swinging back on the pendulum here, for teams possibly looking to aggro up for height. Noxie Andrew though.
Sayos going through Scribbly Shorts creates a unique environment here towards the end games. There's the low grab, the rift, and that's why you saw Wave and his duo kind of floating down from above, going from in that mud, ultimate low ground, to be able to find what they hope to be a little bit of a safer spot. Cynics there along with Cirque, but look at Osid in Scare in the background. You got Electro and his duo as well. I think this one, you got a couple teams that are using high ground as a possible option, only if it does come down to it. Zosin and Scare continue to elevate while they can. They just want to give themselves multiple options here when it comes to this end game.
Yeah, and they recognize there's a team right above them there as well. So already utilizing what looked to be 1 or 2 of the Flowberry Mist. Try to play that outskirts on the zone here, download some information, but didn't turn into much just yet. Look, Cynics and crew are still boxed up as well, by the way. They are playing super passively, not to get overdrived on top of, or like you said, possibly landed on from the rift here. And it's going to be Loris and Amplify will end up making the last desperate effort from the zone into the high ground position. Let's take a look at the maps. They have plenty to go the distance at the moment. All into Amplify's loadout. However, it's going to come down to, can you pressure the rest of the lobby? You still have Scare and Osid playing the mid-ground layer. Electro still eyeing it up as well. So high ground is not safe just yet.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to be safe up until when this game ends, but for them, they've at least been able to solidify, and they have to be able to capitalize on a game like this. Squibbly Shores is their POI for today, especially when multiple teams that were threatening their high ground got dropped down as solo. Scare is now back to the lobby, really forced to watch Osid try and clutch up, and he gets a monster of a second Elim, but cannot wait for the Siphon to come through just yet. He has to let the zone pass him by, but he's still being a nuisance here in the backside of the zone. Another elimination going down for Osid. The Siphon is keeping him alive back here, so that way he can scrap together the rest of these builds and finally shockwave his way into the zone.
That was crazy. If he would have just picked up a little bit more, but then he gets the Siphon as I'm outlining it. Hold up. Osid is cooking right now. But again, all that matters is the victory royale. He's taking way too much punishment here, and now Cynics actually falls here from the team up top. The low ground team putting pressure up as well. It's Gary and Press who are now starting to take the lead here. 6 slap pizzas as well. They have a win condition. Noxie also still has 2 Flowberry Mists, 2 floppers too. So win conditions, people are holding on to those white heels right now. One team jumps into the zone here. Jacob Slate, though, is kind of in the mix, forced into the barrel and takes the fight here. Doesn't end up well for him, unfortunately. And now look at high ground here.
Eulogy, Stiff, Prez, Glizzy, Amplifier trying to hold on to what they think is theirs, but the shockwaves are coming out. The Fizz as well. This is just causing chaos as Angel, Noxie, they have no choice but to give it up. Eulogy falls down as well. Everybody that went up got sent packing as Amplify and his duo hold on to the high ground here, and we're going over recycled builds. That gives them a little bit more of a blessing, something to work with here, as everybody down below is going to have to go head to head to try to survive, and you're seeing everybody lose their teammates in this game as it passes through this next zone.
mean, but the high ground team is not in a winning position at all. They don't have any heals. They've utilized so much material to just go back up what was left of it, and now they're gonna have to force fight their way through these builds while the zone is getting smaller and smaller. Chris and Drew are arguably set up the best right now. However, what does Angel have in his pocket? What can he do to be the disruptor? Because he's just waiting, trying to buy his time right now.
Yeah, from my ground, they're just trying to go ahead and put pressure on the builds, clear themselves a path that they can look. And there goes Angel being the disruptor. Gets a big shot onto Drew before going down to the Storm. Now it's almost like an even playing field. Both of these guys have one teammate weak. Chris is trying to go ahead and alleviate some of that pressure that allows for Drew to buy the time to heal. They have an advantage when it comes to builds. It looks like they have an advantage when it comes to heals. But Amplify, he's an X factor here with almost full HP and shield. Chris, Drew sending it up. They drop him down to the box and clean up both eliminations and have now advanced to the FNCS Grand Finals.
Chris and Drew have done it once again here. You know, the teams that have the little bit of extra experience now going the distance and closing in the end when it matters. Mel's, congratulations for Chris and Drew as the Game 3 victory is theirs, Zeke.
Again, you know, you got to feel that sense of relief for them. I think what's really interesting is out of game number 1, Drew and Chris actually were second place, right? They kind of they like had that one where they could have got the VR, but it just barely slipped away. And now to come back in game number 3 and be like, hey, you know what? It wasn't a fluke. We deserved that VR. We got it. We went ahead and picked it up now.
Man, as a duo that has been so close so many times, they got 137 in the play-ins, just barely making it into heats. And then in heats, they got 22nd place overall, so just barely outside of that top 15 contention. Then, of course, they performed very well throughout the Div Cup placements, but have yet to just find their footing, find that opportunity to break into the top 10. But better late than never, going into the last chance lobby, getting the 3rd victory royale of the day is definitely a way to set yourselves from the rest. So congratulations to this duo. Can't wait to see how they do in Grand Finals.
Absolutely. A breakthrough performance here is what I would coin it. Chris is going to be making his way to his first FNCS Grand Finals and Drew just his second. And I love that Zeke kind of called out already. We've seen a good game from these guys. It was game number 1, but in that game specifically, I remember it was Drew. He was solo. He was trying to make it happen, but the numbers were stacked up against him, right? A 1v2 situation. Flip the script. Game number 3, both of them stay alive, and it just looked easy after that. Low Ground is winning games right now on NA, and it's making everything exciting.
Which is crazy, right? Like, sometimes we see this back and forth, but out of an LCL, you'd assume it's that high ground, but everyone is fighting for it with crazy chops and all of it. It's crazy. Okay, 2 games left to go before this LCL concludes. We're gonna go to break. When we return, let's start setting up for these last 2 because there's only a handful of opportunities left. My stress is coming back. My stress.
Girls, your hot chicks meals!
Bobby! Shh. Okay, coast is clear. Ooh, gimme. Grab me a McShaker fries and 10-piece McNuggets.
With 2 sauces.
And photo cards for the fans!
Nice.
My little soda pop.
Zoe! Pick our meal.
So, Jessica, is there anyone you like?
Like anyone here?
Oh my gosh, let's do Home Court Explorer.
Yes, it helps you shop, quote, and buy the right coverage for you, even if it's not with us.
What do you think of this option?
You look so good together. Don't hate me, I just told him that you're interested.
You did not.
Yes, I did.
Oh, I know. Let's prank call each other.
That's not how that works, Jamie.
Do that with Acrobat. Grab your docs, your permits, your moves. AI levels up your pitch, gets it in a groove. Draft, design, deliver, make it sing. AI builds the deck so you can build that thing. Do that, do that, do that with Acrobat.
Ready? So, let's do this.
Oh, okay.
I got you. No.
Sorry. Híjole, that was intense.
Agreed.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there.
But we still have 2 games left to go here. Friends, with the 2 games left, let's start easy here. How are you guys enjoying the LCL? Kind of coming back and having this opportunity to stream, broadcast this again. It's definitely chaotic. It's a little chaotic and a little different than heats and finals. It's its own special thing. So how are you guys enjoying it so far?
I love it when we get just like a little display of what Fortnite has to offer. And I feel like as far as competitions go for end games and where people find their success, we're definitely getting a little bit of everything right now. We're having a confident high ground from 9th zone. We're having a lot of contention where teams are trading off high ground. We're having teams win from low ground. Honestly, this is what I want to see. It is not about one strict strategy going into the last chance qualifier. No, this is about pulling out all the stops, doing whatever you can to make sure you get your ticket.
I mean, every single time we take a look at some of the games in this type of format where the only thing that matters is the win, it always entertains, right? Even though obviously the win is the only thing that matters, and there's some pop-off moments that do happen for those wins, we still get those highlights from some of these players trying to solo clutch up, or some of our duos popping off and getting 10+ elimination games. So the entertainment is still there. The fact that the win matters so much obviously makes it just the stakes so much higher for some of our teams. And I'm sure the nerves are flowing. I'm sure everybody at home is also entertained just like we are.
So, Kelly Link, I have a question for you. With only 2 games left to go here, and obviously, if we were to just pull up like a fake standings, right, and be like, oh wow, look at the consistency and all that, it would be awesome, but that doesn't matter, right? The only thing that matters is that victory royale.
That's right.
How do these players, come into this situation and go like, hey, I might be playing out of my mind. I might be put in these situations where, man, I'm low on surge, or we our backs are against the wall, and they're coming up with these strategies to make it as far as possible, but it's not enough to get the win. So how do we get ourselves in the mindset or where we need to be to try and pull out a victory royale with only 2 games left to go?
So we were just looking at Lore and Amp right there, and I think in this situation, you can't overanalyze. Actually, playing how they did was really well, and it just came down to a 2v2 where honestly you could do everything right, and then if they just get a better shot onto you, that's all you can do. So I can say, aim better, that's not really going to do too much of a difference. So in these final moments, for our teams that are able to make it to the end game every single time, I think they should just keep on sticking with what they're doing. We've already had some big names that have been kind of an issue on the high ground already make their way through. So these teams that are just so close kind of need to stick with their strategy, but maybe Vivid has a different plan in mind.
No, I really like that. Stick to what you know. Changing things up with just 2 games left to go does not leave a lot of room for, adapting or kind of learning on the fly. And that's exactly what our teams need to do. They need to learn on the fly, but with what they know how to do. So if you take high ground, if we're talking about it, that game right there was the difference maker. Could have been just 1 refresh, because we saw in that final 2v2, one of the players going into that with like 15 total HP. They just had some minis or some extra heals, kind of make them just a little bit more healthier. I mean, it's just the difference between 1 refresh. So just building on what you already know works definitely is what's going to be like the highest chance of success, in my opinion.
Okay, well, Viv, I mean, I feel like some viewers may not actually know that you were a pro player at a time, right? You have been in similar type situations of high intensity where you're like, dude, we stick to it, or, is this maybe that time, Vivid, where if you're a duo and you're not confident in that strategy, maybe you're like, dude, we just can't get those pieces together. At what point do you say, let's just throw a Hail Mary? At what point is that point? Is it now? Is it game 5?
No, I don't think Hail Marys were kind of in the playbook for me when I was playing. The practice had been done, you know what I mean? Literally, I mean, the practice had been done. You had to stick to what you knew, and you just had to go into it confident. Like, hey, listen, I practice this. I know what works for us in scrims or in past tournaments, and that's what I'm going to go with.
Zeke, I think if we had Takata here, a real old pro, then we would probably have a better insight, better analytical mindset. But unfortunately, it's just me and Vivid, so we're going to have to stick with that.
Oh man, we've just started a little bit of a war here. Well, Fortnite fam, we're gonna go away and we're gonna watch game 4 now. So let's tune in and see who can walk away with a VR. Casters, take it away.
I just want to say Vivid had like the coldest response. He basically just said, Zeke, I was so good. Last chance, don't even worry about it. I was winning everything I was touching. Jacob, what do you think we're starting to get into this? It does seem like some people might have to change things up here.
Yeah, I agree with Kelly and Vivid for the most part. You kind of stick to what's working. But if you're one of those teams in this lobby that's constantly down on surge, that's constantly getting your game dictated, that things not necessarily in your control, you have to switch things up. How drastic is up to them, whether if it's a drop spot, rotation, or how they're playing the end games. I think with only 2 games left, these players are going to start to feel the pressure of their opportunities slipping through their fingers.
Yeah, we have yet to see a heal off as well, right? A lot of teams at the end there looked like they were trying to set themselves up to go for the distance, and then they just couldn't wait. It's almost like they all lost patience because we saw 4 teams fighting for height at the end. Well, it's game number 4. It's going to get on the battle bus.
This is where things continue to get interesting. You know, we had drop spots from Jargu and Carillion that were triple contested. Well, there's not too many switches that you can go down there. And then you had QK and his duo kind of qualify out. Somebody immediately scooped up that spot. Now Chris and Drew no longer in this lobby, which kind of frees up yet another drop spot in this game. So if they do have any plans to switch things up, I'd probably start at one of those 3 POIs. As Pods, Phenom over at this drop spot. Flurry and Johans is just trying to rotate down into New Sanctuary. And a drop like this, you kind of leaves you open to those types of damage. And there goes another example here. Hefe Bob and Cyros. He gets the chest from above and immediately puts down that pressure.
This is good. You got that knock right there onto Civ. Nice and easy. Noah Blaze is barely even touching down right now. So clearly already the advantage swung into the hands of Hefe and Cyros. Cyros stops here just in case he can find some extra shields. Doesn't quite get what he was looking for, but he's going to be forced into Fullberry Fizz for the both of them here just to set themselves up for success. And it's not looking good for Noah Plays right now. 2 or 3 games now back to back where essentially he's been on the losing side of the exchanges. Goes for the pre-fire. Doesn't quite land it. Now it's just a matter of time.
Oh, that was a big first shot coming out of Noah Plays. Gets dropped down literally 1 HP, but the 2v1, Cyros moves in to try to alleviate some of that pressure. Noah Plays runs out of build, so he's trying to take a different approach instead of going straight in. Cyros takes the high ground, cuts off another angle for Noah, forces him down below into his old build, but he gets tagged up all along the way, trying to run as Cyros finally takes him out. Such a close, almost elimination on the Hefe that could have turned everything around. But that's going to be Cyros saving the day.
Yeah, pulling up, hitting the shots that matter. Chance and Tyler on the other side. Still struggling after their game 1 success to find their footing and really push something big on the standings right now. Battlewood Boulevard continues to be contested. You have a team to the north, team to the south. And that's in Yuz and Sharkman. Another veteran duo going up to the scene here. Meanwhile, Veer and Threat seem to have Dark Dominion to themselves right now. Everything's going according to plan here, Jacob.
Yeah, not necessarily the end games for Threats and Veer that they've hoped they would have so far, especially from an uncontested drop like this. But honestly, this is a team with so much experience. I don't think they're in a desperation mode just yet. Depending on how this one goes, we'll kind of talk about that as Day gets another elimination on Focus, making sure Scuffies is going to be safe as well. I don't see that other solo player in the mini-map, so they did clean up both. Yes, they did. That's a full-on wipe for Day and Scuffies, and we're honestly seeing a whole different version of this team. As soon as they go back to their original drop spot, something that they do know, it seems like they're finding good off-spawn success.
Yeah, it was really interesting, right? You saw him in the last game try to play frigid and kind of mix things up and do somewhat of a split drop. This time they just go back to like what they knew originally. Day, Scuffies here coming out ahead of the pack, 2 quick elims, and now they're just in charge of this whole drop.
Can imagine without taking too much damage. For these first couple of zones, Storm Surge not necessarily going to be a worry. Let's jump aboard Mythic. Truckski just kind of taking over their split drop, and this is another team that have switched things up. We saw Yuz and Sharkman go from Sandy all the way to Battlewood, and now we have these guys switching up their drop spot, taking the location from Chris and Drew, who have just qualified out of this lobby. But just because teams are qualifying out of the lobby doesn't mean the action's going to slow down any bit. We still got Painted Palms, which didn't necessarily start out as a contested POI, but it's surely ending like one.
Like this though. Scare still holding a high ground though. Just kind of looking out and about, taking the most advantage position possible over the teams that are fighting down here. Again, continue to be the thorn in their side. You know, he's done this game after game as well. You know, this is one of the few duos we've actually tuned in with out of the 3 games so far that didn't have any mid-game surge issues. So clearly going to some of the extremes of building these absurd high grounds is working for them. It's working very well, where that can't really be said for some of the other teams, like even Threats and Veer, like we talked about for a second there. They've had a bit of problem getting a nice solid footing, and a lot of it is coming down to the surge strategies not quite being good enough.
Yeah, I think Scarno said playing to their POI perfectly. Because even though we have seen some North zones, I always talk about Latte Landing being one of few POIs on the map that have mobility unlike every other. So as long as they do get their early game surge, they don't have to worry about the mid game. They hit one of them fizz bombs, they throw the shockwave, and they hit that long launch pad. We saw Reet and Cooper use that strategy throughout the heats as well to really dodge a lot of the mid games. So hopefully, just like some of the other players who landed over towards Latte Landing qualifying and getting into the grand final, Scare and O said 2 chances left. Hopefully they don't leave it to the last game of the day. Hopefully they can find success here as Kaz's D-Gen quickly rotating. This team doesn't even necessarily land over towards the Frigid Fortress, but they immediately beeline their way on over towards the north to try to set themselves up with good positioning for Surge.
We've seen them continue to put and poke their name out at the end games there. Could have gone to them as well. They would just time their high grounds a little bit better. Still having Liam, Smiley already based up, so they've done their loot routes. Now they're just looking for teams trying to reposition here. Taking both controls of the general terrain here. Liam calls for help, it seems, as he's caught a team rotating just now.
Yeah, I like the idea of what they're doing here. Just kind of, like you were saying, spread out on 2 different locations. They get a wider view of where players are rotating in, more chance to get surge tags, but once more and more teams rotate in, it just becomes a little bit too risky to say that far separated from one another. Lethal and Wolf here kind of switching up their drop spots throughout the day, going to the south side of the map this time around. And again, as long as they have been able to control the tempo of how much surge they've been able to get, they're inside of the zone, so they don't necessarily have to worry about these early zones.
Early zones always that cause issues for some, especially if they're on the outskirts. We've already seen teams get caught in the storm rotating into mending machines, getting read like a book. It's at AXL and Rubby just kind of sitting on one right now, but they're more than safe here at the moment, so should be good. Off they go. Try to find themselves a little bit of action, possibly on the edge of the storm.
Game, just like in a few of the games we've seen so far, moving a little bit slower, but once we got that storm surge that does appear, depending on how far above or how far below that actual threshold you have, really starts to dictate how much freedom you have in your own game plan. After you see airs, momentum, just immediately they're trying to position in. The only team they really have to worry about is that one that's on that natural massive rock right behind them. Other than that, they can look behind, see if they can find any teams rotating in, try to land some damage, but I know that team above them can be spotted out from far away, so it might deter some teams from rotating in this direction.
Saw that one end game finish by that mountainous terrain. See if we get some different visuals for this game. Meanwhile, Noxy Angel, a little edit course in the box, trying to stay fired up here. Still has opponents off to the side, so these 2 teams haven't clashed against one another, but they have continued to eye each base up. Kaz and D-Gen go for the monster space inside the Frigid Fortress, so that's quite the play. Meanwhile, look at this. Trying to line up the 3-2-1 onto Amplify, missed their opportunity. You have Highlands Lores just off to the side as well. And there it is, Lores walks out, but no shot landed, so Stax and Cosmo actually missed the ambush. They're going to end up regretting that one. No damage earned there.
Yeah, almost feels like their initial plan maybe move on over towards that mending machine. That way they can buy the med kits or the patch up depending on what's available. But now they can kind of do neither. Didn't get the damage, didn't get any extra HP. Just gonna have to go on like it never happened for the most part. As Tyler Chance make their way on over towards Bush. Spotted out at the last second. Luckily for them, no shots are going to connect. They're going to wait here on the edge. They've already been rotating from the same direction, so they have a little bit of an idea of how many teams are rotating in the zone behind them. They're just waiting these next couple of seconds to see where it actually pulls, to see what their game plan is, and it's actually not too far away. So instead of pulling towards the north like a few of the games we've seen so far, it does look like we're going to have a middle towards south side zone.
Yeah, Chance and Tyler have, again, been contested against that team this entire time, so now they're going back into the storm. We'll keep an eye on the feed, possibly even a little replay to see what happens there. Back on over to Wave and Amen, we saw their clash go well for them. This is a team that was being very much defensive and passive in their box fight, but in the end it paid off just well as they caught their moment. Now they're looking down towards the Dark Dominion. You can see there's still a few teams lurking about.
Like Threats and Fear, no longer there. Probably trying to rotate out. And honestly, typical of games, especially as it moves around, whether if it goes towards the west, like we've seen in previous games, or towards the east, Dark Dominion. A bunch of metal resource there for teams that might not be able to accumulate that throughout the course of the game, or might have had to use it for some early game fights for survival, but it gives Wave and Amin just a little bit of an advantage here. Those teams by no means have to rotate out of Dark Dominion, but if it continues to pull towards the east, eventually they will, and that'd be a good opportunity for them to try to get some damage there. But Storm Surge is finally going to turn on in this game, and we really get to see how teams have been progressing throughout. And for Maniac and Anonia, they're almost 600 above the damage threshold. There's almost no reason for them to peak here.
Yeah, there goes the shockwave play. You talk about not needing to peak too much. 500 above the threshold. We haven't seen many teams be this well situated as far as ones that haven't been performing as well in the end game. So this is really good for Anon and Maniac right now. That Waffle Joe though just went from the team rotated away to who just landed on us. Chaos and Aim from the Storm coming in with a vengeance right now. Also above the surge, but still getting greedy. See what they can fish up for tags and fights here. They don't get rewarded. Instead, they get Waffle Joe just pressuring them now, hot on their heels.
This is tough because we already saw Amin and his duo inside of the zone. You can kind of see it on the mini-map. They're just looking back this entire time, disrupting this, getting little wins in terms of landing. Even if it's a minute amount of damage, it's accumulating all into their total. For Storm Surge, just Aim lurking, trying to peek through a little bit of crevice. Doesn't get the initial shot, but gets a flank onto Aiden. Big damage coming out, and back to back. Waffle Joe tries to be the hero, ends up the 0. Aim and Chaos Gaming. If there's any moment in a match that boosts your momentum and confidence for Aim and Chaos, that has to be it.
Yeah, I was starting to load up the sayings. You know, you're about to get what you're looking for. You're gonna bite off more than you can chew, but nope, none of that was needed. Chaos Gaming did exactly what they needed to, and they got what they wanted. A nice little 2v2, and then they close it out, and they come out ahead without really exchanging too much material or anything. So it ends up working well. Waffle Joe, you're probably thinking twice about how that all played out, unfortunately, but moving on over to Sandman, up 14 right now, who have already found themselves inside the zone. I like the high ground positioning here. They're looking down and pressuring onto the opposing teams all around here, and this is overall pretty good right now.
Yeah, and you can see like everybody now just playing as defensive as possible, because, you know, if you're one of those 14 individual players or full duos that got eliminated out of this game, you're just kind of forced to watch. You have one chance left, and your entire FN season depends on it, because again, it's not only for grand finals next week, it's for the chance at the Major 1 Summit LAN, and then on top of that, Monster, it's a chance at the Global Championship. So there's so much on the line here for today, and in these last 2 games, these opportunities are going by fast. And for Slate, they do already have the focus of the lobby on their attention. They're already 200 plus above the damage threshold, and it's getting even worse here. They essentially need 2 full eliminations worth of damage.
Yeah, it's starting to add up, and it's going to continue to rack up as other teams start tagging them right now. Pressure coming in from behind, from the side, from the opposite angle, but Flores Amplify take advantage of the late rotate. They get delivered the damage they were looking for, and it just buys them a little bit of relief right now. Oh, here comes another team desperate as well. They see what's all happening here, and although the zone's on top of them, I mean, they will have to welcome this fight here.
Yeah, and even though they did get the damage that you were talking about, Amplify took a haymaker of a punch right to the face, and he just got his shield dropped down. So it's not necessarily good for them in terms of overall Storm Surge. You saw them trying to jump barely above that damage threshold, which is fine for now. But if they don't get proactive and get that damage, they're going to be below the threshold in these next couple of zones. And that's why you see Day and Scuffies, even though they're positioned on towards the edge, they know so many teams have yet to make the rotation in, and this is a prime opportunity for them to build themselves a little bit of a cushion.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to think about that you can end up engaging on someone, getting the elim because their health was low, but they hit you with so much damage, you end up net negative. So that's kind of what happened there. I haven't quite put that into perspective for myself just yet this weekend, but yeah, that's unfortunate.
Goes to show that not every fight is going to be worth it, and you can kind of see where they stand after said fight. 54 above the damage threshold. 15 seconds, we'll go from 6th zone into the 7th zone, and that's where we're gonna refresh. We get to the next threshold of players that do need to go down until eventually it turns off altogether when we get down to 40 players left alive. But as we see, from 54 above for 17 below. And honestly, they really shouldn't be too worried because they are in the middle of that path where teams have to rotate in. But now I might have been wrong because it's active surge. They're on the clock here for sure.
Oh yeah, just slipping below the threshold now. 2 elims, not going to be cutting it, given that the teams that they picked those up on were definitely weakened. Look at this, they're right dead center, like in the middle of all of this here. We need to start opening up some edits or looking for something soon. You know, Flowberry misses, of course, allow them to stay relatively healthy and take a few tags here before they have to bust a move. Oh, little knock right below them. They heard something go down. They don't know that there's an opportunity there, but DJ fights back, and a monstrous shot right onto Loris there. And this is a worst case scenario now. Amplify getting tagged here. Weakened builds are going to expose them to the rest of the lobby. And even though they have so many heals, Loris also had 2 of the 3 Flowberry fizzes. Now, Amplify does get back to it, though. So, okay, Degen didn't quite get to secure the loot. This is still in the pocket for Amplify right now. But Degen's on him. He's pushing into the box. He's playing aggressive, but Amplify comes out ahead here. And unfortunately, the price he paid, Jacob, was his teammate.
Yeah, that is actually so tough right now for Amplify because even after winning and surviving against Degen, he's 185 below, but he does have that Mythic Combat AR, which will shred not only through players, but builds as well, but he's getting chopped down below. He has to be careful from all angles because teams will start to figure out that he is a solo and try to break into the box. But from one zone to the next, 189, still below that damage threshold. Storm Surge will reactivate yet again every 7 seconds, but he's not looking to get desperate. He has 5 Chug Splashes. He has a little bit left on the Chug Jug itself and a rotation to make where teams are going to use those shockwaves to get through.
Yeah, there it is. He's going to shockwave early as well here. Goes for the low ground instead of playing the height with all the material that he's got. Not sure how I feel about it, but onto layer he goes. Misses the shot. That matters, and then gets tagged in the back. 140 damage below. 9 players still have to go down, and he's forced to use what's left of the little bit of heals that he did have in the tank there. Now looking for an edit. Plenty of weak players everywhere. Just pull out that Mythic and get to work is what I need to see right now, Jacob.
Yeah, spray into the box, just hope for the best. 83, luckily he's using somebody else's fizz, but he jumps around along with the shockwave, lands another big shot. Amplify truly trying to do everything he can to stay alive, but we go from solos to duos. You're talking about putting your foot down. Well, Osid and Scare, they have consistent top finishes in this game, including a second, but first place is the only one that matters.
And those are some key eliminations onto Chance and Tyler, 2 very experienced players. So you took out arguably some of the toughest competition right now that's remaining in this lobby. But then you have Nut and Sandman, who are, again, very good as well, holding a high ground here. Osid, Scare are just about due for a win, though. We'll see if they be the first to contest here, or what time, if any, they end up coming up. They're still eyeing up that second to third layer there. Meanwhile, Vera and Threats have made another end game. They got past their trouble zone, which has been essentially the mid game. The mid game's been very hard for them, and this is the strongest we've seen them in the end.
Yeah, and so hopefully they can kind of pull it through and execute here. They're using that time and effort to try to regenerate as much HP and shield as possible. Same thing for Scare and Osid, though. 3 eliminations. They're just saving that shockwave. They're moving slowly but surely along with the zone. Sandman and Nut, they're going to re-solidify it. And this is a feeling of deja vu for sure, because we've already seen in previous games Nut and Sandman on the high ground. But Osid and Scare, they're floating so far back. We know that shockwave play is just around the corner.
No way. Scuffies and Day are actually here as well, making their way into an endgame. This is the first big one we've seen them appear in, and although it was looking great for Threats, it is not looking good anymore. Forced to use all his splashes, loses teammate, and even now, sitting right behind the wall while Danger lurks nearby. He finds one, can't quite get the second to get the full finish there, and both of those players will slip out, just barely, but they're still alive.
Yeah, looking to survival here. Osid and Scare, they haven't really looked up towards that high ground just yet. Just waiting. We saw it come in the 11th zone, in the 12th zone in the past couple games, but they look forward. They got another elimination. They grab up all that loot. Just a little bit makes the world go round, but Nut and Sandman, they finally get chopped down to equal playing field. Nobody is solidified as the high ground team anymore. In fact, they're going through all that mess. Nut getting dropped down to just HP. Sandman trying to be the hero. They're elevating themselves again to try to be the team on hype, but Scuffies and Day are also battling for it. Osin and Scare, they just cleared out that mid layer as well.
Osin with a huge refresh right now. That was 2 back-to-back. And look at this. They're down to just a singular build on height. Sandman trying to do what he can to just lead his team across the side here. Boji on the low ground. He's going to go and get fizzled out there to the zone. And it might just come down to the clash from the high ground and the low ground, but it's all going to be about the timing. Day and Scuffies are fired up right now. Northern is someone who has definitely been in these intense situations before. So we really do have great teams still in the running.
Yeah, and you see Osid, Scared, just kind of waiting, crouched down, lurking around, waiting for somebody to make a mistake. Day and Scuffies doing the same thing, but they're further back in the zone, so they have a little bit of catching up to do. Cosmo's a solo, trying to go and solidify the high ground. He has so many builds compared to everybody else down below, but we're in the 12th and final zone. Time is running out. Everybody is sending it towards that high ground. Day and Scuffies, they're the kings on top of the castle for now, though. They've sent Cosmo down below, and this is the only chance they have to try to put pressure on the only duos remaining. Sandman loses Nut, so already they're feeling the effectiveness of that pressure.
Zero builds as well. You can hear the rotates right behind the wall, but Osid doesn't actually make the peek there. Scuffies and Day find the elimination. The zone is just eating them alive right now. Meanwhile, it's like a repeat for Chris and Drew's team as they're just sitting down low, healing while all this stuff's going on and just letting the high ground teams take the fight. There it is. Osid, Scare finally secure another elimination, and that's the refresh they were looking for.
I'm sure Day or one of them went down to the actual zone, trying to give up the resources, but it doesn't work out. Cosmo, the only solo's trying to go up. He has the fizz. He's trying to disrupt. He has to climb up anyway. We're going past that mountain. Big shot on the Scare. Shockwaves as well. Osid and Scare gets flying towards the zone, but they return back. They back and back at it again. Scare gets the elimination. Osid is now down. 9 eliminations, 1v1. No extra heals. Him versus Northern. It's all on the line, and Scare clutches up to advance to the grand finals.
And you brought the energy for that one. That's exactly what they needed right there. Olsen and Scare couldn't have timed it best, and that was by far the best game we have seen so far. And we knew it was only gonna be a matter of time. Z, that was a great game 4.
Bro, that was such a crazy shot to take. Just think about this for a moment. The chaotic nature. You're like, okay, hey, everything's fine. Oh, what's that? We're shocked wave into zone. Okay, chaos ensues. To take a fight, to push them in zone, to take the left-hand peek, Kelly Link. Confidence. Confidence.
I would love to say that the story was building throughout the entire game, but I think the story's been building throughout this entire last chance lobby. Scare and OSID have been trying out so many different things, trying out so many different little strategies to make their way into the final moments, and they've been there. They've been at the end game every single time, and to see them biding their time in the mid ground, just grabbing refreshes when they can, waiting for high ground to have just enough chaos for them to go up themselves and then to get launched away. But really what stood out to me was that Scare was able to get back in zone, Vivid, but OSID knew that he didn't have the opportunity to go back in, so he stays in Storm, trying to get shots off on anyone else to make sure that his teammate can stay alive, and it just works out.
So many things to break down for game number 4. Obviously, the highlight being OSID and Scare, like Kelly mentioned, the little tweak to the strategy. They've already proven today multiple times that they've got the strategy